じゃないと言い聞かせて全てを自由に操れるかなんてわからないよと空は霞んで世界はどこ僕の手のひらに残る大事なもの忘れない記憶何度でも君を守り抜くと叫んで巻き戻しの中掴んだ愛はそう話はしないから散りばめた想い今一度君の願いで次への僕に託したよいつかの約束光の道しるべになる誓いをさ君のため最後まで涙さえ力に変えてきっと描いてた望む未来へつなぐよどこにも行かないでくださいねスバルくん
Lying on the bed, her expression was serene. To Subaru, she looked like she was sleeping. Her lashes are so long, he thought in a daze, gazing at her closed eyes. She'd usually made an effort to keep her face expressionless, but in her sleep, a softness befitting her age was showing on her cheeks. Come to think of it, Subaru had never seen her asleep. She always woke before him and slept after he did. Subaru knew. To keep herself resolute, she had always tried to bury the childish side of her, but that stubborn facade has collapsed so many times before Subaru's eyes. Be it surprised or embarrassed, pouting or about to cry, or after opening their hearts, her smile gleaming under her tears, there should be so many chances to see them again. Rim. Even after calling her name, caressing her soft white cheeks, she made no response. On the bed, deep in her slumber, the maid's dress so familiar on her shoulders, the white headband that adorned her hair so blue and beautiful as the sky, were all gone. The attire she wore in her work and in battle, she had no need for them now. There you are. In the room, silent and stagnant as though time had stopped, someone called to Subaru. Slowly turning as though reluctantly, he looked behind him. It was a young woman with long, softly swaying hair. She wore a simple yet elegant dark blue evening dress, and even as she walked toward him, she seemed overflowing with grace. But her movements had a slightly muddled hesitation about them, which combined with the elegance of her person, gave out a rather odd impression. Subaru cannot help but feel a sense of awkwardness when he is near. She still hasn't changed. Even though I can't do anything, I thought I could at least stay here with her. But that's such a cowardly thing to say. Still, this would make her happy, wouldn't it? Seeing Subaru's downcast expression, the woman timidly tried to console him. But hearing this, Subaru shot back a stare at once fierce, bitter, and cruel. His senses sharpened at her words. His eyes locked onto hers. Without meaning to, it was already far beyond his control. Noticing his reaction, the young woman placed her hand over her lips. "I'm sorry," she apologized. "I said something I shouldn't have, and I hurt you, didn't I?" "No. I'm the one who should apologize. I was only venting my anger pent up all inside. If I behave like this, Rim will really be angry with me, won't she?" "You're hurting people's feelings like that, Subaru-kun," or something like that. He shrugged and said that softly, in Rim's voice. In his mind, he heard her voice saying those words, a voice only he could hear. His impression sounded nothing like her, but there is not a person left in the world who could point that out. Against Subaru's empty words and gestures, the woman sadly lowered her eyes and held her left wrist in her right hand. As if a shadow had descended between them, the room returned to silence. This familiar feeling. Natsuki Subaru shouldn't stay like this. Should he? Subaru shook his head in his heart. To sink into the depths of an ocean of despair is easy, even if only so the piercing anguish would go away. But it doesn't suit him. As the man she believes in, as the man Rim loves above all in the world, this is not what Natsuki Subaru should do. Never. You were looking for me then? Yes, I want to hold a meeting with everyone present, so I've asked everyone to gather in the lounge, if it's all right with. Nodding with an expression like she's just been saved. The woman got right to the point, but then stopped halfway through, and furrowed her brows rather awkwardly. It took a while before Subaru noticed this. My name is Natsuki Subaru. I'm sorry, Natsuki Subaru. I will be sure to remember, even though I've been told how much I am indebted to you. Please excuse me. My apologies. It can't be helped, can it? There must be a lot of things you need to remember right now. Don't worry about it. As if to say she was very, very sorry, the young woman lowered her head. Then, seeing her recover again with perfect grace, even femininity, Subaru could not help but feel a sense of surreal incongruity stabbing at his chest. But even Subaru wasn't brash enough to say this out loud. Shaking his head, Subaru decided to put that aside for now, and stood up. Turning to the girl on the bed, he gently touched the hair on her forehead. I'll be back, Rim. Breathing softly, she really exists. Having been forgotten by all the world, this was the only remaining existence. Her only remaining existence. Thank you for coming to fetch me, Miss Krush. With this name, Subaru thanked the long-haired girl, who seemed to have become a different person entirely. By the time Subaru arrived in the capital, it was already over. His conversation with Amelia on the road were all gone from his mind. The girl sitting safely next to him, Subaru should feel content and relieved, having finally saved her. But in the relentlessly galloping dragging carriage, the only thing on Subaru's mind was the other girl. Who is Rim? Looking confused, she tilted her head as she said this. He scrambled to look for the smallest hint of a joke, something in her voice, something in her expression, hoping against hope the words "just kidding" would come out of her mouth. Whether it's Petra or the other kids, no one remembered her. Having confirmed this fact with everyone on the carriage, Subaru commanded the driver to rush to the capital with all haste. On his face was the desperate expression of someone riding into death itself. Impossible. There must be a mistake. It was all going so well. Everyone was saved. The objective was completed. Despite enduring so much pain and sorrow, taking so many scars within his heart that will never, ever heal, everything worked out in the end, and still.
Yaha, it's Subaru-kyan. Impressive, Krush-sama. You managed to find that capricious little stray?
On the way to the lounge, seeing the two in the hallway, someone called out to them, shaking around in a short dress, liberated from the knight's garments. A pair of cat-like ears twitched. Ferris walked over to them and gently picked up Krush's hands. Ferris-san.
I'm just Ferris. Ferris and Krush-sama have known each other for a very long time, Yan. And if you add a son to my name, I'm going to die of loneliness and despair, Yan.
Holding up Krush's hands in one hand, Ferris used the other to nudge Krush in the shoulder. At such affectionate interaction, Krush looked like she wasn't sure what to do with herself, but essentially accepted it as is. And with a sorry, she lowered her head. To become just like before, even though it's not easy, I will try my best. Ferris, yes, just Ferris.
It's alright, Nyan. Because Ferris is always Krush-sama's companion, and will always stay by your side. And together we'll be such a cute version of Krush-sama. Ferris will even find even more reasons to fall for Krush-sama, Nyan. Just the thought of it makes Ferris happy, nyan.
Playfully swinging Krush's captured hands up and down, Ferris blew her a kiss. Watching them, the unease growing inside Subaru's heart became unbearable. Even though Krush had changed so dramatically, Ferris treated her the same as always, and accepted her as always. It was something beyond what Subaru could understand.
Subaru-kyan, get to the lounge, nyan. Emilia-sama and Old Man Wilhelm are waiting for us.
Ah. His thoughts must have added something into his voice, but Ferris didn't seem to notice. Saying,
This way, Krush-sama.
Ferris led her by the hand. In a subtle atmosphere between Subaru and Ferris, Krush tried to hide the uncertainty looming between her brows. She looked at them, one and then the other, and in the end not saying a thing, silently followed behind Ferris's steps. Taking a deep breath, Subaru bit his lips and closed his eyes. His mind was on edge. His heart felt dissolute. In that state, he didn't want to see anyone at all, but it can't be helped. He will not make excuses to comfort himself, because the last thing he'd want to do is blame her for his pain. This way, they made their long overdue entry into the lounge. Noticing all eyes were on him, Subaru looked around the room. Other than himself, there were 4 people present: Emilia, Wilhelm, and one step before him, Krush and Ferris. Seeing he must be the last one, Subaru closed the door behind him, and ever so naturally, sat down next to Emilia.
Subaru.
No problem, I've calmed down now, Emilia-tan. I'm alright. To Emilia's worried call, Subaru lightheartedly retorted. Only his eyes weren't looking at her. Rather, he couldn't see her at all. If he met Emilia's eyes now, he would have revealed a despised part of himself. The very thought of it filled him with uncontrollable dread.
Now that everyone is here, let's begin, Yan!
With the sound of a clap, everyone's attention landed on Ferris. It would be impossible for Krush to direct a meeting in her condition, so the task fell to Ferris. Roughly surveying everyone present, Ferris walked to the front of the room with an arm in the air.
Since there are no objections, Nyan, let's assess our situation.
Thus, with a smile, a meeting from which everyone wanted something completely different began. With the sound of a clap, everyone's attention landed on Ferris. It would be impossible for Krush to direct a meeting in her condition, so that task fell to Ferris. Roughly surveying everyone present, Ferris walked to the front of the room with an arm in the air. After the battle with the White Whale on their way back to the capital, Rim, Krush, and the punitive expedition, bringing with them wounded soldiers and the whale's severed head, were ambushed by the 2 Sin Archbishops. Half of the expedition perished. The demi-human mercenaries accompanying them retreated immediately and avoided annihilation.
When the Vice Captain Itaro brought the capital's knights back to the scene, the Sin Archbishops were already gone, Yan. Only our knights' bodies and...
People who were like me, right? Krush furrowed her brows at Ferris's last few words, biting her lip. With a dejected expression, she must have felt it was all her fault. To her, Krush and Ferris's story might as well be referring to another person, because my memory was erased by a Sin Archbishop.
Probably, Nyan. I've attended to the other patients with the same condition as Krush-sama. Their memories are completely gone. There is nothing Ferris's healing magic can do, Nyan. Even now, Ferris has no idea what the cause is.
Sin Archbishop Gluttony. This authority, it might be him.
Wilhelm nodded gravely, and with a stern expression, he looked to Krush. But seeing Krush shrivel under his gaze, Wilhelm closed his eyes in apology.
I was inconsiderate of Krush-sama's condition, and I frightened you. I am deeply sorry.
I still have much to learn. No, I should apologize for being such a useless master, even though I am trying my hardest to remember everything about Wilhelm-sama. Hearing Krush call him Wilhelm-sama, the old swordsman cringed. Seeing his sworn master suffer so, the guilt and shame of having failed to protect her brought pain onto Wilhelm's face, glancing towards Subaru, who at this moment must be carrying the same feeling within his heart. Wilhelm seemed to understand him. On the other hand, Ferris, whose attitude toward Krush would not waver in spite of everything, seemed to disregard Subaru's feelings completely.
Sin Archbishop Sloth has been dealt with, and Nyan, there's gluttony and greed. There is a limit to what can be done, Nyan. Something so rare as two Sin Archbishops moving together, I'd be surprised if Emilia-sama's rise has nothing to do with it.
Me? Her name suddenly mentioned, Emilia looked at Ferris with a surprised expression. Nodding to her, Ferris continued.
The witch cult will never tolerate the existence of a half-elf such as Emilia-sama. They are usually quiet and creep in the shadows. But now they're all suddenly making such a ruckus. There's obviously a connection here.
Listening to Ferris's speculations, Subaru crossed his arms and pondered on a conversation they had before. The night before the battle with the White Whale, when Subaru discussed with Ferris and Krush the possibility of a witch cultist attack, they had accepted his suspicions readily. That means there must have been precedents.
But, even though I don't know much about the witch cult, the witch refers to the Witch of Envy, right?
Raising her hand nervously, Emilia uttered this entirely unexpected question. Subaru doubted his hearing. Wilhelm and Ferris's expression froze. The only people who weren't astonished by these words were Krush and Emilia herself. Seeing their reactions, Emilia became even more nervous.
Sorry, I can tell from her reactions that that's something I really should know.
But Emilia-tan, you should know about the witch. You were the one who told me. The first time they met, she had given him the name Satella, and then after he had died, he tried to call her by that name again. His memory of her anger meant that she knew that the name was forbidden. But Emilia shook her head at Subaru's words.
Near the forest where I lived, there was a small village. They hated me because of my likeness to the Witch of Envy. So I know how the witch is regarded in this world, but things like the witch cult, how Emilia-sama lived in the past, let's just put that aside for now, Nyan. But to say that you don't even know about the witch cult at this point is just too outrageous, Nyan.
Seeing this attitude from Ferris, Subaru's anger rose, and staring into Ferris's eyes, he retorted, "How can you say this? To admit you don't know something? Do you realize how much courage that takes? To ask what is necessary? What is wrong with that?"
Subaru-kyan is really persuasive, Nyan. You really are master and servant, Nyan.
Ferris relentlessly mocking Subaru's unhidden displeasure. Subaru was about to stand up in anger, but... Ferris! I cannot overlook what you just said. Apologize at once. The moment before Subaru's strength injected into his legs, the words of reproach rang out into the room. In her dark blue evening dress, up to now frail and timid, she all of a sudden transformed, majestic and fierce. Her gaze was that of a knight. As Subaru-sama said, to ask what you don't know is nothing deserving of mockery. Even you do not have that right. Understood?
Understood, Krush-sama. Emilia-sama, please accept my apology for my rudeness. Subaru-kyan too.
No, it's fine. Then let's talk about the witch cult now. Emilia-tan wants to hear it, and to be honest, I don't know the details either. Seeing Subaru back down, half giving up, Ferris lightheartedly replied with an
"Understood, Nyan."
A finger lightheartedly touching the lower lips, Ferris shook around in a short dress. Her forceful words subsiding, Krush seemed to return to the soft-spoken girl of a moment before. But as if having heard something from the awe-inspiring Krush of the past, from this now frail and feminine girl, Subaru could not hold in his astonishment. Ferris, too, could not contain the shock within his eyes.
Firstly, as Emilia-sama said, the witch cult is an organization that worships the Witch of Envy. Ever since the unstoppable rise of the witch 400 years ago, these fanatics have been active. To the Knight's order, all affiliates of this organization are to be killed on sight.
Killed on sight? To carry out such extreme orders? How could they?
The witch cultists will not hesitate to burn a village or an entire city to accomplish their goals, Nyan. In fact, the village near Lord Waswall's manor came close to falling victim to these cultists, and one of the Sen Archbishops that took part in the ambush had once managed to single-handedly capture a city in the Empire of the Volcania, in the south, Nyan.
Emilia kept on blinking her eyes, as if unable to take in these facts. Subaru understood her reaction, because the horrors of the witch cult had already been carved deep into his heart. He now uses Betelgeuse as the standard of measurement for insanity. But in terms of strength, greed sounds like something on a completely different level than Betelgeuse.
Wait, I'm getting sidetracked, Nyan. The witch cults and archbishops, each named after one of the 6 sins, other than envy, are the executives of the organization. The 6 witches were sloth, greed, gluttony, lust, wrath, and pride, right? Yes, Nyan. And especially well known among them are sloth and greed. Greed, as previously mentioned, is known for annihilating entire cities, Nyan. Sloth, on the other hand, seem to be behind every little disturbance caused by the witch cult. But sloth has already been beautifully eliminated by our punitive expedition, Nyan. Right, Subaru-kun?
Yes, Sloth is dead. I saw him disintegrate with my own eyes. There is no mistaking it. Subaru confirmed Ferris's words, his mind playing back the final moments of the abominable Betelgeuse, screaming Subaru's name full of hatred. Even long afterward, the sound would not leave his ears. Like a curse, it kept on howling. Was that the reason behind Subaru's cruel fate?
There are now 5 remaining Sen Archbishops. 2 of them are responsible for the ambush on Kurosama. Their movements are always mysterious, and so even after 400 years of the effort to eradicate them, we've barely made any progress. As to their objective, it is said that they want to revive the Witch of Envy.
Revive the witch? Unable to disregard these words, Subaru jumped up, tipping over his chair. Noticing this gave the girls a fright. Subaru waved his hand up and down. To revive her? Is that even possible? The witch has been dead for 400 years, right? To make something like that come back to life?
Subaru Dono, the Witch of Envy is not dead. Her life is still linked to the edge of this world, unfortunately.
To the agitated Subaru, Wilhelm quietly revealed this fact. Speechless, Subaru looked to Wilhelm and met his eyes, serious and severe.
Near the great waterfall, there is a sealing stone temple. The witch is there, her indestructible existence sealed inside. For even with the power of the dragon and the sword saint combined, she cannot be destroyed.
Sealed? I might have heard that before, but to revive her, why don't they just destroy the seal? Where did Subaru hear that before? But more importantly is the question, if the witch was sealed, they merely need to break the seal. But instead, every time a half-elf appears, they wreak havoc in the world with senseless murder and destruction. Just what is the witch cult trying to do? But at this question, Wilhelm shook his head.
To approach the temple is almost impossible. First, there is very little mana near the great waterfall. Under those circumstances, no one can withstand the witch's scent. Secondly, they cannot bypass the Elder Sages.
Elder Sages?
The Elder Sage Sala and the first-generation Sword Saint, and the Dragon Borokanika were the heroes who sealed the Witch of Envy. Then they retired to the Pleiades Tower near the great waterfall. But retired in name only, Nyan. Even now they keep you watch. For those who would revive the witch, that is, as the story goes.
They must be quite old. 400 years is quite a long breath, even for sages. But that is besides the point. Subaru decided to set that aside so Ferris could continue. Well, now we know why the witch can't be unsealed. But then, how do they revive her?
Even if you ask, Yan, Ferris isn't a witch cultist and doesn't know either. All we can do is torture a witch cultist and have them spit it out, Yan.
Brushing off Subaru's question, Ferris took on an I give up expression. Even though Subaru wasn't satisfied, there was no point in pursuing the question further. In any case, Emilia nodded.
So that's why I'm treated like this, but why didn't Puck?
Did Puck say something just now? There's a mountain of things I need to ask him.
Puck didn't respond. Even though he seems to have materialized, I only know he's nearby.
Seeing Emilia shriveling in her seat, it did not even occur to Subaru to say they're there. In fact, to talk to Puck is something he absolutely must do. Besides, there is no way to predict where or when Sin Archbishop Greed will appear. Puck's input will also be crucial.
That's all there is to say about the Witch Cult, Yun. So on top of that, let's move the discussion to the future.
The future? Turning to Subaru with a clap, Ferris, with a jubilant smile, said,
To put it simply, this alliance. Let's dissolve it, Yun.